All right, so I'm back at Cypress Falls. It's one of my go-to spots for landscape photography. And I thought I would just talk a little bit about getting those long exposure shots. So today, I'm not going to talk about composition. I feel like everybody puts a lot of weight on composition, but it's the person's eye. So I think you should just figure out what you want to shoot and shoot that. But what I can do is I can help you with settings. So today what I want to do is just show how to blur the water. So everybody asks me how I do the like silky water or blurred water, slow exposure type shots. And there's a few tricks for that. So one, you definitely need a tripod. So I got the tripod here because I'm going to have a slow exposure, which means I can't hand hold the camera. The idea is to basically have everything in focus and sharp, but the water moving through the frame with the slow exposure. You'll start seeing water movement definitely at like say 60th or 30th of a second, especially when it's moving really fast. But I like to do maybe like 1 second or a tenth of a second. So usually slow it down towards that 1 second marker. So there's a few things I have to do in order to do that. So one, I need to have either a darker day or some way to dull the light. So what happens when you're dealing with lots of light? Usually you have a faster shutter speed. Today I have quite a bright day, so it makes it a little bit tricky. So I have a few tricks for that too. So I want that, slower exposure, maybe 1 second. So the next thing I can do is I can up the f-stop. So when I shoot wide open, I'll have a faster shutter speed. And if I bring the f-stop down to say f11 or f16, close the aperture, it'll allow less light to enter the lens when I'm shooting, and that will slow the exposure or the shutter speed down. So first thing, duller day or darker day. Second thing is using smaller apertures or bigger number f-stop like f11, f16. The other thing to do is also bring the ISO of the camera down. I'll try to shoot at the lowest ISO possible, so maybe ISO 100 or 50 or 200, whatever the lowest possible ISO for the camera. So that will also slow the shutter speed down. And then lastly, if it's really bright and I can't make a slower exposure because I'm maxing out the f-stops, like I'm at f16 or f22, I have my ISO right at the lowest, I have my tripod, but I'm still getting a faster shutter speed, then I typically will use an ND filter to cut the light. Neutral density filter will then cut the light and darken the exposure or slow the shutter speed down. And you can get ND filters right up to 10 stops, so really, really dark, so you can't even see through them. I usually have a 10 stop for really, really bright days when I want to have a slow exposure, or I have a 6 stop, which is a really nice one for almost any other time, unless I don't need it. I always have a polarizer, and the polarizer will also cut the light by about a stop to 2 stops, depending on the polarizer. It also saturates color and takes the glare away. So that's a really good way. So I usually start with a polarizer and see if I can get the shutter speed that I want. And if I can't, then I start using NDs. And I usually use the ND6 6 stop first. And if that's not long enough or not dark enough, then I'll go with the 10 stop. But the 10 stop I usually don't use. So those are the tricks to use to get slow exposure or long exposure photography during the middle of the day, even in bright daylight. It looks really cool. It makes the water look all silky and smooth, but you will need a few of those tricks and a tripod in order to get that done. So I'm going to take a couple shots, and I hope that this little trick will help you get your long exposures dialed in. Yeah, so sometimes when you're dealing with this really bright day and having hot spots, we call it hot spots. So hot spots are areas of way too bright, which you find in the forest a lot, and sometimes you can use it to your advantage. But when you're trying to shoot a particular location, like I have this waterfall cascade here, and that's what I'm trying to shoot, it makes it really difficult when there's hot spots right in that zone. I can't really do anything about that. So I would come back on another day when it's overcast. But what I can do today, because I'm here and I'm trying to film this little vlog, I'm going to switch my position and see if I can sort of like move around and get the camera angle not actually showing the hot spots, which I've done here. So I'm actually getting a photo now. So I'm going to take that shot here, and then I'll show you this one. So just for a quick overview, we talked about long or slow exposure, slow shutter speed photography today. And what you need is a tripod. You'll need to set your camera to the lowest ISO possible. Then you'll have to bring the f-stop up or close the f-stop so that you have less light entering the lens. I usually use an ISO of 100 or 200. And typically an f-stop from f11 through f16 and possibly f22. And lastly, what I'll do is I'll use a neutral density filter or a polarizing filter to cut the glare and darken the exposure, which means that the slower shutter speed will happen. Today I used a polarizing filter. I didn't need the ND filter, but a lot of times the ND filter in really bright daylight is needed. It's basically sunglasses for the lens, and it cuts the shutter speed down by a lot. So that's usually how I do it. I hope that you learned something from this video. I'm going to do more of these, so stay tuned and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.